What if I told you that $1 billion beauty industry thrives off making you fear something completely natural? Every wrinkle, every gray hair is a reminder that you're human, but to the anti-aging agenda, it's something to be fixed. Today, we're pulling back the curtain on the scam of staying young and asking the big question, why are we so afraid of aging? From high-end serums to Botox injections, the pressure to stay youthful has never been more intense. But is it all just a money-making trap? Or is there a deeper societal issue at play? Let's dive in and find out. The definition of beauty, a shifting standard. What exactly is beauty? While it might feel like a simple question, the concept of beauty has evolved dramatically throughout history. Yet one theme has remained consistent: the association between beauty and youth. This connection, deeply rooted in both cultural ideals and societal structures, has been ingrained in us for centuries. But how did we arrive at this standard? Let's trace its history. In Western culture, the ideal image of beauty has long emphasized youthfulness. As early as the 12th century, women were praised for their pale skin, rosy cheeks, and smooth, unblemished complexions. These qualities, symbols of purity, fertility, and health, were markers of youth. In a time when life expectancy was much shorter, signs of aging were often seen as signs of weakness or decay. Writers and poets of the medieval period described their ideal woman as delicate, with golden hair and skin as white as snow, suggesting that beauty was inherently tied to looking fresh, young, and untouched by the realities of life. But Western culture wasn't the only one to obsess over youth. In ancient China, the pursuit of youth and longevity was a powerful motivator for emperors and elites. Emperor Qin Shi Huang, the first emperor of unified China, famously dispatched his servants in search of the elixir of life, a mythical substance believed to grant eternal youth. Cleopatra, the legendary queen of Egypt, was also known to bathe in donkey milk, a luxury she believed would maintain her youthful appearance. These ancient rulers, much like today's beauty influencers, were captivated by the idea that youth could be preserved or even restored through specific practices or potions. The desire to remain young is a universal and timeless human trait, but what has changed over time is the intensity and pervasiveness of this desire. While past societies may have worshipped youth and beauty, it wasn't commodified on the global scale we see today. Modern capitalism has transformed this innate fear of aging into a highly profitable industry. From the mid-20th century onward, the beauty and skincare industries have carefully crafted narratives around anti-aging, selling us everything from serums and creams to more invasive procedures like Botox and fillers. The message is clear: aging is something to be fought off at all costs. Across cultures, youth was traditionally tied to health and vitality, qualities seen as essential for survival. In many ancient civilizations, to appear youthful was to appear strong, fertile, and capable. But as societies evolved, especially in the Western world, the stakes around youth and beauty became more about status and desirability than mere survival. By the time we reached the Renaissance, artists and thinkers idealized a type of beauty that emphasized proportion, symmetry, and a youthful glow, traits we see today in modern beauty standards. However, the fear of aging and the obsession with youth weren't universally accepted. Interestingly, there were periods in history where aging was celebrated, not feared. In the 16th century, intellectuals like Luigi Cornaro promoted the idea that old age could be a time of enlightenment, wisdom, and even beauty. His book, The Art of Living Long, became widely popular, with readers eagerly absorbing his ideas that aging could be a graceful and fulfilling process if one took care of their health and body. Cornaro's ideas were a refreshing contrast to the anti-aging hysteria we experience today. Yet even during this time, many women still resorted to extreme methods to maintain a youthful appearance, such as applying raw meat to their faces to reduce wrinkles. By the 19th century, with the Industrial Revolution in full swing, the beauty industry began to truly take shape. As mass production became possible, Women from all social classes had access to beauty products that promised to reverse or slow the signs of aging. Skincare products, powders, and potions became more widely available, and beauty entrepreneurs like Elizabeth Arden and Helena Rubinstein capitalized on the growing demand for youth-preserving products. What's changed in modern times isn't necessarily the ideal of youth itself, but how aggressively it's been marketed and globalized. Capitalism has amplified these ideals, exporting them to every corner of the world. From Hollywood to social media, the message is the same. Youth equals beauty, and beauty equals worth. This pressure to remain forever young is more than just skin deep. It's psychological, financial, and emotional. While the obsession with youth continues to be glorified, what often gets overlooked is the toll this takes on our mental health and self-worth. We are constantly bombarded with images of flawless, ageless beauty, making the natural process of aging feel like a personal failure. The anti-aging industry, now worth billions, profits off this fear, promising that with the right products and procedures, we can somehow escape the inevitable. But here's the truth: no product, no procedure can stop the passage of time. So what does this tell us about the definition of beauty today? It's clear that beauty has always been tied to youth, but it's also important to recognize that these standards are not universal or unchangeable. In certain historical periods, aging was seen as a positive, even aspirational phase of life. Today, however, we live in a world that tells us to fight aging at all costs. It's time to question the narrative and reimagine what beauty can mean as we grow older. But in reality, beauty is not confined to youth. It's in our wisdom, our experiences, and yes, even in our wrinkles. And when I was a kid, I used to love the movie Death Becomes Her. I swear it was one of my favorite movies. I still love it. I actually watched it the other night. And in the movie, they take the potion to preserve their youth and reverse aging and live forever. And I feel like that movie always stuck with me because I do not necessarily have a fear of aging, but I think a lot of people in some ways fear it. I don't know. Botox Nation, the allure and consequences of freezing time. No conversation about aging in today's beauty-obsessed world is complete without discussing Botox. Originally developed for medical purposes in the late 1980s, Botox was first used to treat eye disorders like cross-eye and eye spasms. But by the early 2000s, it had found an entirely new purpose as a cosmetic treatment, forever altering the landscape of anti-aging. Fast forward to today, and Botox has become a household name, a $4 billion industry that promises to erase wrinkles, freeze time itself. What started as a treatment for medical issues has morphed into one of the most sought-after cosmetic procedures on the planet. I mean, I work at a medical aesthetics clinic, and Botox has just become completely mainstream nowadays. Botox is marketed as a quick and effective fix for wrinkles, with injections becoming as routine for many people as getting a haircut. In just 15 minutes, your face can appear smoother and more youthful. Obviously, it takes 2 weeks for it to set in. For some, it's a miracle. For others, it's a quick way to chase society's unattainable beauty standards. But here's the catch. Botox is not permanent. The effects wear off in 3 to 4 months, meaning that you have to obviously go back to maintain the look. But I mean, for a lot of people, it does even help with their expressions because it makes you feel less angry if you're getting the muscles between your eyes, so you're not making those frowning faces. And the cost can be steep. One session typically runs from $400 to $600 depending on the amount used and the clinic you visit. Multiply that by number of sessions required. I mean, if you get it every 4 months, you could only go technically 3 times a year. So let's say it's $500 each time, maybe $1,500 a year, depending on how many units you get. And while this might seem steep for some people, and I mean, I guess over time it does add up, but in a way, I don't know, it's your face. I mean, I get it. Some people don't want to do it. I see it both ways, but I think it's a good way to take care of yourself. Once you get used to the wrinkle-free face, obviously it's hard to just stop doing it because you get used to it. And a lot of younger people, it's not just older people now, because I think when it first came out, obviously it was more taboo, but now like everyone's doing it, and people do preventative Botox. People who are like in their early 20 years old, they're getting preventative Botox just to kind of like stop the wrinkles from forming. Because a lot of times once you wait till you have deep set wrinkles, obviously you'd have to use a lot of skincare and medical grade procedures to get rid of the wrinkles besides Botox. So acting young makes a wrinkle-free future. So people are just going to be aging differently, because if you look back even in the 90s when you watch a movie before Botox, it's actually quite shocking to see the difference in people's faces and just the movement you see in people's foreheads. And preventative Botox raises a lot of questions. Are we preemptively freezing our faces out of a genuine concern for our appearance, or are we buying into a beauty standard that has been artificially constructed for the very industry selling us the solution? Are we being manipulated into fearing the natural process of aging, all for the sake of profit? I mean, obviously in many ways, yes. As Botox has become more increasingly normalized, it has given a rise to something that many call the Instagram face. This term describes a very specific look: high cheekbones, a smooth and poreless forehead, plump lips, and cat-like eyes. It's a face that seems almost sculpted from the same mold. Popularized by influencers, celebrities, and reality TV stars like the Kardashians and Bella Hadid. While some might argue these cosmetic enhancements allow for personal expression and self-confidence, there's no denying that they contribute to the homogenization of beauty. What happens when everyone is chasing the same look? The answer is clear: a loss of individuality. As more and more people opt for Botox and fillers, we start to see the same features repeated over and over again. The unique aspects of a person's face, the quirks, the characteristics that make them one of a kind, are gradually erased. Instead, we're left with a cookie-cutter version of beauty that's heavily influenced by social media, celebrity culture, and a narrow definition of attractiveness. And I do agree on that I feel like a lot of people are being morphed into looking exactly the same. Like everyone gets the same nose job. I don't know, it was kind of creepy in a way. Like I feel like people were more unique looking in the 20th century compared to now. And the pressure to stay young, a battle against time. The pressure to look young isn't a new phenomenon, but it's undoubtedly more pervasive now than ever before. In the past, youthful beauty was often tied to the ideas of fertility, vitality, and status. But today, the stakes are much higher. From the Victorian era, when women were praised for their feminine glow, to the modern obsession with wrinkle-free, flawless skin, society has long conveyed the same message. Aging is something to be feared and fought against. The pressure is relentless. It's not just about looking good, it's about maintaining relevance and worth in a society that glorifies youth. In the Victorian era, women's beauty was described in terms that emphasize their softness, delicacy, and more importantly, their youth. A woman's glow was associated with her social class and leisure time. As it suggested, she didn't have to labor under the sun like working class women. Pale, translucent skin and rosy cheeks were symbols of privilege, and even then, aging was something women were warned to avoid. Women who lost this glow as they aged were seen as having neglected their beauty, or worse, their moral responsibilities. This idea that aging is a woman's fault has persisted through the ages. Throughout history, women have been held accountable for their aging appearance. If a woman had wrinkles, graying hair, or sagging skin, it was because she wasn't taking good enough care of herself. The blame was placed squarely on her shoulders. And while modern science has since revealed the role genetics, hormones, and environmental factors play in the aging process, the beauty industry continues to reinforce the idea that aging is something you can and should control. In today's world, this message is amplified to deafening levels by an industry that profits from our insecurities. From the moment we see our first wrinkle or notice a slight sagging of the skin, we're bombarded with advertisements for anti-aging products promising to reverse the clock. From creams and serums to expensive cosmetic procedures, the beauty industry positions itself as the savior, offering solutions to a problem that is entirely natural. We're taught that wrinkles are a sign of neglect, that gray hair should be dyed, and that sagging skin can be lifted. The subtext is clear. Aging is something we should be ashamed of, and we are responsible for fixing it. But aging is inevitable. It's a biological process that no amount of creams, Botox, or filler can permanently stop. And yet, the societal pressure to look young has never been more intense. Women in particular are bombarded with the message that their worth is directly tied to their appearance. As we age, society tends to devalue us, especially women. The media, advertising, and even the workplace reinforce the idea that youth equals value. This pressure is visible everywhere, from job interviews where older women are often overlooked in favor of younger candidates, to entertainment industries where roles for older women are few and far between. In pop culture, the narrative is stark. Younger women are celebrated as fresh-faced heroines, while Older women are cast in roles as villains, hags, or irrelevant side characters. This dichotomy is deeply ingrained. Think of how often we see older women in films and TV shows portrayed as witches, cronies, or bitter, undesirable figures. Characters like the evil queen in Snow White, Ursula in The Little Mermaid, and Mother Gothel in Tangled are all examples of older women whose desperation to hold on to their fading youth drives them to be villains. Meanwhile, the youthful protagonists are depicted as pure, desirable, and worthy of admiration. This portrayal of older women as unattractive or even evil has real-world consequences. It reinforces the idea that women's value diminishes as they age. While younger women are often put on a pedestal, it's no wonder so many of us are terrified of growing old. Society tells us that as we age, we become less relevant, less visible, and less worthy. The pressure to cling to youth is overwhelming, especially when combined with the reality of ageism in the workplace and everyday life. Ageism, the discrimination against individuals based on their age, is particularly damaging for women. In the workforce, youth is often equated with innovation, energy, and potential, while older women are seen as past their prime, despite their wealth of experience and knowledge. As a result, older women frequently find themselves sidelined or overlooked for promotions and opportunities. I love how it's such a double standard between men and women. If you look at Mad Men, like all the silver foxes in there that seem to be doing just fine. This devaluation extends beyond the office and social life, where older women often feel invisible or ignored, particularly in spaces that glorify youth and beauty like the fashion and entertainment industries. The fear of aging isn't just about look, it's about staying relevant in a world that glorifies youth at every turn. This pressure drives women to spend vast amounts of money on products and procedures that promise to stave off the signs of aging. But the truth is, no matter how much we spend, aging is a battle we will all lose. While cosmetic procedures like Botox and fillers can temporarily reduce the appearance of wrinkles, they can't stop time. And yet, the beauty industry continues to sell the dream of eternal youth, knowing full that it's unattainable. And what's worse, the pressure to look young extends far beyond the beauty industry. The notion that youth equals value seeps into all aspects of life. Social media exacerbates this issue, with platforms like Instagram and TikTok filled with photoshopped, filtered images of impossibly youthful beauty. Influencers and celebrities, many of whom are in their 20s or 30s, reinforce the idea that looking young is the ultimate goal. And as more people turn to cosmetic enhancements to achieve this look, the line between what's real and what's altered becomes increasingly blurred. And I always thought getting a facelift was maybe for just Hollywood. And then after being at my work and seeing people's charts when I'm checking them in, I'm shocked about how many people have actually gotten facelifts. I didn't realize how mainstream it was, is what I'm saying. I actually thought it was more if you're an actress in Hollywood and you just want to keep your career going, but I didn't realize how mainstream it was. And this brings us to the concept of aging gracefully. A term on the surface seems to celebrate natural aging, but often comes with its own set of expectations. Women are praised for aging gracefully as long as they still look relatively young. Gray hair, wrinkles, and age spots may be accepted to a certain extent, but there's still an underlying expectation that older women should look good for their age. It's a backhanded compliment that suggests women are only valuable if they defy the visible signs of aging. And I actually hate the compliment when people even say that to me. Oh, you look good for your age. I don't know why. I don't know, can you just say you look good? So where does this leave us? As a society, we need to start rethinking how we view aging. Instead of seeing it as something to be feared or fought against, we should embrace it, a natural, inevitable part of life. Aging brings with wisdom, experience, and a new perspective of the world. Things that should be celebrated, not hidden away. But for that to happen, we need to dismantle the harmful beauty standards that tell us that youth is the only thing we're striving for. It's time to shift the narrative and start valuing women for more than just their looks. Because in the end, we're all going to age. No product, procedure, or miracle serum can stop that. The real challenge is not defying age, but in learning to accept and appreciate it, wrinkles and all. I mean, I'm all for using good skincare because I really do think it works, especially medical grade, and getting IPL, staying out of the sun. I'm definitely all for just taking care of your skin because it is your biggest organ Morgan. The real horror of anti-aging, a deeper look at the fear of growing old. Even more than the classic horrors of ghosts, ghouls, and things that go bump in the night, there's one fear that seems to universally strike terror into everyone's heart: the fear of aging. In fact, aging has been a prevalent theme in the world of horror for decades. From the unsettling premise of modern films like The Substance to the timeless classics, the idea of watching your youth fade and your body decline has become a psychological horror all in its own. But what exactly makes aging so terrifying? And is this fear something we should confront rather than flee from? Let's consider how aging is portrayed in horror films. The genre is notorious for exploiting our deepest anxieties, and aging is one of the most primal fears of all. In movies like The Shining, Drag Me to Hell, and The Visit, the old woman becomes a symbol of decay and ultimately death. These films just don't show older characters, they portray aging itself as something grotesque, alien, and monstrous. Wrinkles, sagging skin, and gray hair are used as a visual shorthand for something to be feared, something to run from. In these narratives, aging isn't just about the loss of youth, it's a descent into horror, a transformation to something other. But why is aging so universally feared? On a basic level, aging is a constant reminder of our mortality. Every wrinkle, every gray hair, every ache and pain is a sign that time is passing and there's nothing that we can do to stop it. In a society obsessed with youth, beauty, and productivity, growing old like a slow loss of power, visibility, and identity. The aging process forces us to confront the inevitability of death, something the horror genre has capitalized on for years. In more recent horrors like The Substance, I really want to see this movie. It has Demi Moore in it. The fear of aging takes on a new dimension, blending sci-fi elements with body horror. Characters attempt to reverse the aging process through experimental treatments, only to face terrifying consequences as their bodies mutate and rebel against them. It definitely reminds me of Death Becomes Her too. And these films tap into modern anxieties about the lengths we go to avoid aging, whether it's through extreme cosmetic procedures, experimental medicines, or dangerous shortcuts. The real horror lies in the desperation to cling to youth at any cost, and the disastrous results that follow when we push our bodies beyond their natural limits. But there's another side to this fear of aging that often gets overlooked: the cultural and society pressures that made aging seem so terrifying in the first place. From the beauty industry to Hollywood, we're bombarded with images that glorify youth and marginalize older people. Advertisements sell us creams, serums, and surgeries to erase the signs of aging, reinforcing the idea that looking older is something to be avoided at all costs. Celebrities who appear to defy age are celebrated, while those who age naturally are scrutinized or simply fade from the public eye. These pressures make the natural process of aging feel like a personal failure rather than an inevitable part of life. But here's the thing: while the fear of aging has been deeply ingrained in us by society, it's also a fear we can overcome. Just like the monsters in horror films that seem terrifying at first but lose their power once they've understood, the fear of aging can be reframed and ultimately embraced. Aging doesn't have to be seen as a loss, it can be seen as a time of growth, self-discovery, and strength. The real horror isn't in aging itself, it's the pressure to pretend it's not happening and constantly chasing the youth. The more we fight against aging, the scarier it becomes. The anti-aging agenda unraveled. So what's the real takeaway from all of this? The anti-aging agenda is more than just a marketing strategy, it's an entire industry designed to exploit our insecurities, manipulate our worth, and ultimately profit from the fear of growing old. We've become conditioned to see aging as something to be avoided at all costs, a battle to be fought with creams, serums, and procedures that promise to turn back the clock. But in truth, the anti-aging industry thrives on something much deeper than vanity. It preys on our fear of becoming invisible, irrelevant, and powerless in a society that glorifies youth. The truth is, aging isn't inevitable. It's a natural, biological process that no amount of money can prevent, and yet billions of dollars are spent every year on products and procedures that claim to hold the secret to eternal youth. But we must ask ourselves, what are we really buying into? Is it the false hope that we can somehow defy time? Or is it the societal pressure that tells us our value diminishes as we age? Well, there's absolutely nothing wrong with taking care of ourselves, and I fully believe in that. Whether you're trying to be healthy with exercise, diet, skincare routines, or even cosmetic procedures, it's crucial that we just recognize the limits of these efforts and that no product or procedure will ever stop time or make us immune to the natural progressions of life, but I fully support a really good skincare routine and taking care of yourself. And it's just more important about how we perceive aging and how we allow society's standards to shape that perception. And it should not be seen as a failure or loss of beauty, because it's all inevitable. And aging is a privilege in many ways. You're privileged enough to reach a certain age. And perfection in many ways is a myth. And thank you for joining me on this important discussion. If you've resonated with this topic, I'd love to hear your thoughts. Leave it in the comments below and let's continue this conversation. And aging is a journey. We're all in it together. So let's make a space for compassion and understanding and celebration of every stage of life. Until next time, and thank you for watching, and don't forget to check out some of my other vintage videos.